This program is called Live with Locals, which is an interview series that's a part of our Book to Action program, which is inspired by the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's a really great grant program that we're lucky to be a part of. And our theme this year is sustainability. So we are so excited to connect today with Edward Belden from the Monrovia Parks, Wilderness, and Recreation Foundation, which can be shortened to MPWR, and to learn from him about that foundation and a little bit more about his work in green infrastructure. So for everyone that's joining, please feel free to put your questions in the chat throughout, and we'll make sure that those get relayed to Edward. But to get started, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Edward, and about MPWR as a foundation and its work with Canyon Park.
Sure. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here this afternoon with everyone. So I am currently the president of MPWR, and MPWR, as you brought up, it's the Monrovia Parks, Wilderness, Recreation Foundation Incorporated. And we're really love to use that acronym MPWR because that's what we're doing. We're here to really support recreation and community assets, programs, parks, facilities, the things we all love here in Monrovia and really rely on to make sure we receive numerous benefits from those, from the health benefits, the physical benefits, the emotional and mental benefits that parks and open space provide to us. We know it's really important. It's even more important now since COVID and the pandemic, and everyone's really used that as a refuge. And we've formed in that context to really grow this organization that started back in 2000 and to expand its mission, to make sure that we are going beyond the Hillside Wilderness Preserve and Canyon Park to all the parks in Monrovia and all the programs that they could have and really support community at large.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, we love, all of our parks in Monrovia. It's very well loved, very obvious how much the community enjoys the Canyon Park. So moving on to green infrastructure, this was something that when I learned this about you, I was so excited to hear more. Tell us, what is green infrastructure and how did you find yourself involved in this work?
Sure. So green infrastructure is really a way to look at nature-based solutions to traditional problems that we run into every day. And for green infrastructure, usually you're using that term when you're instead of incorporating just traditional infrastructure, maybe treating stormwater and just putting it, let's say, into a pipe and using it for one purpose. We're looking at ways we can use nature-based solutions, so maybe a bioswale to help treat water quality and improve water quality, and also maybe allow that water to infiltrate back into the ground so you can use it as to actually go back and feed our water supply. So what we're trying to do is really look at things in an alternative, different approach and have projects that are multi-benefit, that incorporate, as I said, kind of nature to help maybe treat the water or provide habitat at the same time, so that you can have multiple, like a project or a site address things in a little different than we have in the past, where we have had a tendency to pave over pave over land and develop projects that may be able to divert water in a certain direction, but not treat that water as it was before we had the built project on this land. And I think it's really important to what we're doing, since you oftentimes take a watershed approach with these projects and look upstream. And that's what MPWR is doing as well, is looking upstream and downstream and trying to link all of these wonderful assets we have in Monrovia together. And from Canyon Park to Rotary Park to the Kiwanis elements at Library Park, and also the elements down at Station Square. So I think the way I really got involved in green infrastructure was just through some neighborhood scale projects where I was working for the Council for Watershed Health and looking at how we can address stormwater, which is one of the biggest challenges we have, since we have put together a lot of concrete in many areas, and that leads to this impervious surface. So water, instead of being able to soak into the ground, just runs off in a little quicker and faster than it used to. And it's not being held for water supply benefits, and it's oftentimes mixed with oil or other pollutants on the surface and becoming more contaminated. So I worked on a large project in Sun Valley, which is in the San Fernando Valley, called Elmer Avenue, where we treated runoff that was coming onto the block, allowed that to be cleaned up, put it back into the ground so it could become water supply for the community, and also addressed water quality elements on the homes themselves of the neighborhood. So we had rain barrels, we had porous pavement, we had bioswales, which are just like some plant-based systems to help treat stormwater, and integrated those throughout the neighborhood to help address this one problem of stormwater runoff, but also provided many solutions. We had little habitat with native gardens. We had the ability to recharge the aquifer, which ended up providing more water than the block used itself. That was one of the first projects, and now I get to work on the LA River, and that's a huge, large-scale green infrastructure project where we're taking a conventional flood control channel that's really achieved its purpose in preventing flooding, but we were going to build in more benefits by adding new habitat areas that can have terraced banks, where you can ensure that maybe there's even fish passage with some new systems in the river channel itself, and just making it much more of a friendly space for people to be in and animals to be in, and to coexist, so you get that multiple benefit element.
Yeah, and when we spoke before, I just thought to myself, this is such incredible work, and it's so important and necessary that we have these, solutions for infrastructure, that we're making these choices mindfully as we're moving forward. And it makes me wonder, is this a particular field in the sense that, you go to school for this and you learn more about it, and then that, whatever degree that is, you then apply that and go find jobs. What's that experience like?
Sure. My background's in biology, the ecology field, and then also in environmental sciences, which has allowed me to kind of grab and borrow and enjoy learning from many different fields. Engineering's in there, to physics and the hydrology. You need to kind of understand how water flows to be able to work with it. And at the same time, build into the habitat features, right? Understanding what birds and species are going to be out there. We have just such an array of wildlife in Monrovia, LA. I mean, LA is one of the birdiest counties in the country, they call it. So we have access to just some amazing amenities, especially like the San Gabriel Mountains here, and the linkages that are provided between that and then our rivers, and ensuring that we bring those all together, structures that we know that we're improving the corridors and allowing this natural energy to happen between the built environment and what we're trying to do with our landscapes, and how we can let nature kind of play a role in it and come in and also use it for their benefit too.
Yeah. And do cities, because we spoke with last week Alex Tachiki from Public Works, and learned a lot about how community development and public works kind of come together to make sure that these important decisions are kept in mind when it comes to the land. And we talked about water conservation. Now, for green infrastructure, do cities employ folks with backgrounds in green infrastructure, or is it more of something like contract-based where they seek you out for that information? What kind of partnerships or how does that exist?
No, it's a really good question. So I think it happens on multiple scales. As you look at what you talked about in terms of direct jobs that a city might have, obviously the public works groups are heavily involved now, and green infrastructure is a term that many civil engineering firms and civil engineers themselves tend to use now, and understand that there's ways to look at and treat our problems on an everyday basis in a different way, or maybe look at it from a different perspective. So the old traditional mindset might have been to look at it in one problem with one solution. Instead, now we try to look at one problem and maybe multiple solutions that can benefit multiple elements that the community needs, right? I mean, a tree might be able to provide that resource where it may reduce some of the reduce some of the rain runoff in terms of the peak flow you might have. So you can implement those with other elements and get the same result rather than just with one. And there are definitely consultants out there that are helping. There's a lot of nonprofits out there as well that are working on small groups in the San Gabriel Valley to even larger, some of the larger NGOs like the Nature Conservancy does this on a large scale in many different cities. And we're seeing more and more of a interest by the traditional environmental organizations that realize that working in cities is really important, and also working with the communities and understanding what the community needs and how the community knowledge, which I think gets back to your book, well, that it's important to bring that in, and that what people's experiences are and how they're going to use the areas and how they're going to interact with those areas so they can respect them and understand them, and also keep them keep them in the future, because a lot of the green infrastructure require like maintenance that's a little bit different. You might have a trail that does take a little more care, and community take a role in that and play a role in that. And rather than something that it's easier to maintain a paved portion sometimes, since it's just there and it's just static. But obviously you get more benefits out of it if you have a chance to let it grow and come back to life. And community members can play a role in that, taking care of it.
Yeah, and speaking of the community, that was one of the reasons why I asked. I was so interested in to learn more about green infrastructure and just the field in general and how people can become a part of that, because Book to Action, we kind of mention this in every interview, is very much inspired by that action portion. And how can we get folks involved in making daily changes, big changes, taking part in activism efforts and things of that nature. So folks getting involved and youth being aware that this field exists, and having an understanding of how they can be a part of that. We definitely wanted to, that was something I was so interested in hearing from you about, so we could share that with the community, especially for any young people that are coming to this Book to Action program and might potentially be interested in doing what you do. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course. That's great.
Yeah. And that also kind of related to green infrastructure then, how is that specifically applied to our community in Canyon Park and the watershed and things like that?
Yeah, I think the city's done a good job of looking at coming back from the Bobcat fire, looking at how nature can rebound on actually, and is capable of healing in many ways itself. There's going to be opportunities to look at how the city addresses stormwater in the future, and has been working with the county on plans to evaluate opportunity zones, let's say, where you could add in some park elements that have natural treatment wetlands that help reduce the pollutants that are going into what is ultimately our drinking water supply. It does a lot of the water that we have that comes down through the mountains. It goes through our community and eventually meets up with San Gabriel River or the Rio Hondo River and helps infiltrate into the ground and adds that water back to our water supply. So the way we treat it is really important. And I think the city's done a good job of looking at those options and alternatives and finding some great solutions. I think we'll hear more from the city in the future about that. But that's one of the important parts of our projects so far is making sure we look up to the mountains and what we can do to help out with the restoration and how, more importantly, maybe even the amenities at Canyon Park back. So looking at some of the tables, the exhibits that they have, and some of the signage, that's something we're looking and interested in working with the city on, and how we can help maybe tell that story about the link between Canyon Park and the watershed to the community, and how important it is. That's one of the reasons Monrovia is here, is that we have a really old city in Los Angeles County overall, and it's because we were so close to the mountain, had access to water supply, and that's not necessarily true in many other parts of Southern California. So the coast was settled later, even though it's the most popular place in some people's minds, because they didn't have access to fresh water, but we have it right here. And it's amazing that we have this resource to us as well, the ability to go out and spend time in these wonderful woods and go under the oak trees or the sagebrushes and smell the flowers. So those are the projects we're excited about working with the community on, and finding some ways, I think, eventually to do even volunteer activities, or even some opportunities to meet and talk to people more about what they can do or how important these elements are to the community.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so interesting to hear, specifically what you mentioned about where our water comes from, and then that's something that's interesting and maybe even a little unique about Monrovia. We spoke a little bit with Alex Tachiki last week about this as well, to learn a little bit about where our water comes from, and why it's important to conserve. And I thought that was so interesting to hear that, we have our own water source, which was something that I'm not from the area. I wasn't really familiar with that. So I imagine that presents then some unique challenges in projects, and wanting to make sure that we really protect that resource, considering it's something that we are more actively involved in. So that was really interesting to learn.
Yeah, and I think, as you point out, it's a great opportunity to talk about the relationship with the natural resources, fires and water, and how they're all connected in Southern California. And currently, fires are needed for some of the plants to rejuvenate, some of the trees to come back, and at the same time, they definitely contribute to a better environment, and also make it more challenging to make sure we have clean water and a healthy water supply system. And helping to tell that story is something we're excited and looking forward to working with the city on, and when they look at some of the Canyon Park, like the Nature Center, and some of the elements, how we could help convey that message.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And so kind of bringing it back then to Empower and the foundation. How can folks get involved with the foundation, or do you have any upcoming projects that you would be seeking, help from the community to make those happen?
Sure. Really good questions. Thanks so much. So what we're currently working on is bringing shade to playgrounds in Monrovia. So that's like library parks, ground, the one at Station Square. Rebuilding amenities and exhibits at Canyon Park is another thing that we're pursuing and working with the city on. And then also even providing some scholarships for some of the fee-based recreation programs that are offered, so that everyone has an opportunity to participate in those. Those are broad 3 buckets that Empower is currently working on. And if people have the ability to support those with some financial contributions, that's definitely really, really appreciated. There's definitely more information about the projects and about our organization, what we're doing, on our website. It's it's Monrovia, PWR.org, Empower, I think. So Monrovia Power, basically.org. And there's also a chance for, in the future, in July, we'll be having a silent auction with a lot of great Monrovia items and opportunities to get out and explore. It's going to be really, really spectacular with what's offered there. And by people contributing to that, of course, it will help support these projects. We do anticipate we'll have some volunteer opportunities in the future. Not exactly sure what those will look like. Maybe a small chance for people to help rebuild or repaint an element in a park, which I think would be exciting for folks. But those are in the future, and it's going to take a little time. We've essentially transitioned the organization in January, so it's our first few months, and we're excited. We've had some great campaigns so far. I think some people may have seen that we had a chance to produce some ornaments and keepsakes from the Bobcat Fire for people to enjoy, so they could understand that if we all come back together as a community, we can help rebuild those things we love. And that's what we're trying to do with the organization.
Yeah, I really love that focus on community and, getting these messages out and education. I think that's so important, and it's very much in line with what we're hoping to accomplish with this Book to Action program. Now, at this point, we're kind of we're done with our formal questions. So if anyone has any that they would like to ask for Edwin, please, or for Edward, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm sorry. Please feel free to put those questions in the chat. And but I was curious. You mentioned the ornaments, and I saw those, and I thought that was a really, really lovely way, like you mentioned, to kind of work towards restoration efforts. Are any of those ornaments still available for sale by chance?
Yeah, we still have them. Yeah, I think we left it open as like a keepsake idea or an ornament idea, whatever people want it and share it with other people. It's great. We'll probably have something like that in a different version this next year as well.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hope to try to do it as an annual, but they're still available now. So yes, up and you can get them, and we'll see, maybe like a contest or something where people could help design what type of ornament could look like in future years. We've talked about doing that, so I think it'd be exciting. If people have ideas or they want to look at that, please let us know. You can obviously send us some information or send us a note through the website, probably even through Instagram as well. And I want to make sure I just shout out as well to the board in general on the group. It's an incredibly dedicated number of individuals. We have Gio, who's involved. I know he's really involved with the library organization and community garden. We have Julie Bank, who is obviously involved with many organizations as well, and the Community Services Commission. We have Donna Baker, who is dedicated to so many different causes in Monrovia. It's remarkable. Brian Olson, who has been fantastic, and just his knowledge and his relationship as well with the history of everything that's out there in the community, and also Chris Ziegler, who has a deep love for making sure that youth are engaged and actively participating in recreation and getting out and exploring. So it's the whole team, and we're also looking for other people that are involved, that want to be involved even on the board level necessarily. So if they have questions, please reach out to myself, reach out to any of us, or just reach out to anyone through the internet and on our online presence.
Yeah. And speaking of the board, are there any particular criteria that you're looking for in someone who wants to join the board?
Right. It is a working board and also a board that currently is heavily focused on supporting our programs with resources. So it is a board that we're looking to, number one, support these projects through financially. So that is something that we are trying to have an emphasis on with our organization right now. And we really appreciate everyone that has supported us so far in the past, and we want to thank them for any future contributions, of course, as well.
Yeah, so someone with a fundraising background then would potentially be ideal for the board.
Yes, if they're okay with fundraising at large, yes. So
yeah. Awesome. And I was also wondering, you mentioned some of the projects and a lot of the conversations and partnerships that happen between Empower and the city and other entities. For certain projects that come in mind are when it comes to, like you mentioned, with the with wanting to bring shade to certain parks and different projects that you've mentioned like that. Where does the idea come from? Does it typically originate with Empower? Does it originate with the community, the city, or does it kind of vary?
Yeah, right now we're working hand in hand with the city on these projects and developing them, make sure that they fill the gaps that we have in the community and also are things that are needed. And as the organization grows, we definitely like to hear more from the community. The great thing is the city did put together a park master plan that was developed about 2 years ago. It was adopted, I want to say, and that had identified a lot of park amenities that were needed in the community. So it's a great blueprint for what we can help support along with the city. But we realize that there's needs that arise all the time, and we want to have some flexibility. We want to be able to make sure that we look at what things aren't currently happening and how can we encourage that and hopefully financially support that to make it something that's successful in Monrovia. So I'm sure people have ideas out there. We'd love to hear them. So that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. And I will go ahead, I think, and make this my last question. If anyone has anything else to that they would like to ask about, please feel free to pop that in the chat, and we'll do our best to get that answered. But as far, we've talked a lot about how Empower could be financially supported. What would be the best way to go about making donations?
Oh, right. And I think Gio may have just put that links on there. The website has a great access tool on it. So you can go directly to the website and easily contribute electronically. It's safe, it's secure, don't worry. But if there are, we can accept as well, like checks that can be, we have a physical mailing address. It happens to be the same mailing address as the community center. Since we're working with the city, we have a mailbox there. So there's multiple ways. If it's challenging, please at any time, just feel free to reach out to us board members or just reach out through the website and we can answer any questions you might have. So we want to make it as easy and simple as possible. And I do want to say thank you to all the our past contributors and supporters. We've had really outstanding community support, and we want to say thank you to them and those organizations and the future as well.
Fantastic. All righty. If there are no more questions, I think then I'm going to double check just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, yeah, we're all set. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm very appreciative for you being a part of this project and for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and giving us a little bit more information about Empower and how it will help our community. So thank you so much, and thank you for everyone that joined us today. At the end of this live, if you could please go ahead and visit the link in our bio to take the survey. That really helps us out with all of our programs. And that will be all for today. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Yeah, thank you.
For all that, and this is a great program. I'm always amazed at the remarkable work happening at the library, and this Book to Action is just a small piece of what the great things you do every day. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much. That means a lot. All righty, take care, everyone.
Good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.